friends, thank you so much for watching. I've had some requests for a video that really outlines how to do the longest wearing eye look that you can do. And I thought, okay, that sounds fun because I definitely have favorites in every category of the eye makeup that can result in definitely all day wear, wearing well through the elements, wearing well through tears, something that's just not gonna run down your face, okay? And I am gonna use traditional eyeshadow in this video. Now, that's not to say that certain shadow sticks and cream shadows that completely set, yes, of course, those are long wearing. My preferred thing to wear on my eyes is like powder eyeshadow, and that can be very long wearing too. I feel like mattes tend to wear a little bit more consistently than shimmers. That's not like an across the board 100% of the time comment there, but if I had a choice and someone said it's really got to wear and look the same all day, I would go more toward mattes. I think with shimmers, there might be, I don't know what kind of ingredient that's in there that could just be prone to creasing just a little bit more and showing signs of wear, and then also you have shimmer particles that may not be staying in place. So I'm going to be using matte eyeshadows today, and every other, supporting cast member of this eye look, the liner, the mascara, smudgy liner, it's all going to lock in for all day wear. I will let you know at the start here what else is on my face. I've been a little bit shinier than usual lately, and I thought let's throw on some Professional matte primer and just see how that helps today. I've got my Wet n Wild Photo Focus matte foundation on in soft beige, and I was just saying the other day, like, how can I tell that I'm about out of this, because I use this like crazy and I feel like I'm not running out. And then today I pretty much had to scrape the sides with that little spatula, so the time has come. Incognito concealer, also from Wet n Wild. This is in light beige. I set my under eye with L'Oreal Infallible Blurfection. That's in the pink light shade. And then I've got some Infallible 24-hour fresh wear foundation in a powder in true beige, lightly all over the rest of the face, just so I have a nice consistent feel to the skin overall. We're not just wanting the eyes to stay, we want the whole thing to stay, right? I use my Rimmel Multitasker bronzer stick in tan, so that's my contour. My blush today is the L'Oreal Infallible blush in Daring Rosewood. It's really earthy and pretty, but still very nicely pigmented, as you can see. And then Rose Gold highlighter from Hard Candy. My brow is Benefit Precisely My Brow Pencil, and set that with the Morphe Micro Manager Gripping Brow Gel. So that brings us to the place we're at now, where we're going to use an eye primer. So Milani eyeshadow primer, I have bounced, between this one and the Wet n Wild Mega Last, although the Wet n Wild, something changed in the tube is all I can say. For a stretch of time, I was noticing like some creasing that I never usually have. Milani never gives me that, so I went back to Old Faithful there, and an eye primer I believe really does help enhance the wear of your eyeshadow. But you'll notice something I do is only squeeze out a small little bead of this stuff, spread it between two fingers, and you notice I'm not overloading myself with a lot of product here, because too much of this will inevitably create the problem that you're trying not to have, which is excess shadow kind of collecting in the creases of your eye. So make sure it's minimal, tap over it with a clean finger if that helps, and that can ensure that, none of this creamy product is collecting somewhere. But what it will do is help that shadow cling on. It'll help the shadow be more vibrant than it would be otherwise. So I love using an eye primer. And then, like I said, I'm gonna use some matte eyeshadow today. You could choose e.l.f., you could choose Patrick Ta. If you've got some other brand you're really into, go for it. If you'd like to use a cream shadow all over your lid and you've got something that locks in really well, that's great too. One thing I do tend to notice though is even with cream shadows that are very long wearing, there will just be a feel to them that is just not as dry, and like sometimes you'll feel them when you blink a little bit, like there's some kind of cling. I'm guessing people with hooded eyes would feel it even more. They do still have some moisture compared to an eyeshadow, but a matte shadow I feel can give really consistent wear all day. So this is the one from e.l.f., the Perfect 10 eyeshadow palette. I can never remember the specific name, Mad for Mad, Nude Mood. Got too many eyeshadow palettes circulating in my brain, but it's the one that's just, basic mattes, and it's got a lot of earthiness here. It's got some rosy browns, which actually kind of makes it a little more unique than it feels initially when you glance at it. But I'm going to go to this shade right here, mid-tone. The eyeshadow in this look is really just the customizable, could change day-to-day part of this look, fill in the blank with what you like. I think what's really going to matter a lot are the super dark things that you put on your eye, like liners and mascara. I definitely have some certain product recommendations there. Again, it's that shade. And then we're like, maybe let's deepen it up a little bit. I'm going to take this slightly warm color right there. Just add that into my crease. You can see it deepening up, and I'm just using my Profusion crease brush. And these don't have a ton of fallout, but I find myself just stamping my brush in, making sure I don't get too much on at one time. If there's anyone out there who's watching this who does have like especially oily eyelids and you've got some tips and tricks, you know, that are different from what I'm sharing, feel free to talk about that in the comments. I'm going to go to this shade that's right in between the two I used. So we first went here, then we deepened it here, but there's this kind of like peachy pink actually, and I'm going to use that on the border. Now this does have pigment, but it just sort of fades us out of those other two shades. See how it smoothed it so nicely? Just a little bit. And that's what makes this palette so easy, a very close gradient between colors. Then I'm going to go to this one right at the end, and that can come directly under the brow. That'll be our lightest shade. Okay, a lot of times it just feels easiest to me to establish that crease first, and then I can move on with my other shades and take something even darker. If you want to, I'm going to go over to this shade, probably our darkest pure brown in this. As you can see, we got a couple cool shades there at the end, but this would be our darkest brown. And this is my Morphe M303. It's a flat brush that does have a little bit of fluff at the end. And what I've learned is that does a great job of hitting the crease and actually applying a little bit of shadow to the crease. So oftentimes after I'm done using this, I look pretty blended, even if I might go in and blend even more. Again, we're going right here to this friend, dabbing it in. And you know what made me do this now is the game day idea, the thought of being outside for a long period of time. Maybe you're sweating, maybe you're potentially in some rain or some different kinds of weather. This could be a look you could count on. So I'm going to this shade again. So this is what I just patted on my outer corner, but now I'm thinking more about shape. I'm thinking more about what's happening up in here, you know? And we always talk about lift. This is not something you have to do, but it's something that, you know, as I'm just at rest and my eyes kind of might fall a little bit from, you know, standing at attention as I'm doing this eye tutorial, the eyeshadow can maintain some lift on your face. So I just sort of blend it up and out. I blend up in the direction of this outer part of the brow, not dropping below this line, okay, which that line is connecting corner of eye to tip of brow. If you drop down below there, then you'll be kind of working against yourself and get more of a droopy look. Again, that same brown we've been working with. And then the first place you put your brush is going to be in the crease. So think darkest color, going to come out of the crease. It's going to gently fade out. And I find myself doing like little bitty circular motions, and this brush just gives me loads of control. If you were trying to do this step with a much larger brush, it really wouldn't work. So I definitely highly recommend this Profusion small pointed brush. It comes with the crease brush in a set. You get those and you get the Morphe large and medium flat, you're pretty well set. All right, so there we are. We've done the crease, we've done the outer lid, we've kind of flared out the outer corner a little bit. I'm going to take just a bare blending brush so we feel extra super duper blended. There's nothing on this brush, and just hit the outside. No big deal. You can also just clean off your crease brush a little bit and do that. And then the Morphe M302, a little bit smaller flat brush. I would pick a shade that's just a little lighter than some of my other mid-tones, so I'm taking that kind of pinky one. And we're just going to pat this over the inner lid. Okay, dab, 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 let it overlap. And it's nice and smooth, you know, it's almost mimicking skin tone a little bit, and you're thinking, what's the point, Em? But it smooths. The whole texture of everything is looking smoother, really complete and uniform and nice. Now we're going to talk about that upper liner. Couple of good options. If you are a lazy liner person and the thought of a liquid liner pen does not get you going, you might consider a deep shadow stick. So this is, you know, a little bit thicker, less precise. You can get around your lash lash line, but it's going to give you, oh, I got eyelash there. Where did it go? Okay, I made a wish anyway. This is going to feel thicker and just easy and quick, and you can go across your upper lash line with it. And these lace shadow sticks, they do last a very long time. They're a great formula. They're very easy. They've stayed super creamy, even ones that I've had on hand for a long time. So that's an option for you for the upper lash line. And you might have a variety of other just pencil eyeliners that you really like. I know loads of people love the Sephora 12-hour colorful liners. That lasts a long time. This shade is Tiramisu. I did a video once where I said recommend products to me that I should try, and I'm not joking, this specific shade of eyeliner was recommended to me so many times. People love that. But when I say something that won't come off until you very deliberately take it off, this is where it's at. This is the Milani Stay Put Tank Eyeliner. It is a pen form, so as far as liquid liners go, it's gonna be easier for you to work with, but it can create that nice fine line right at the lash line. And if you were gonna do false lashes, you know, this would be the kind of base I'd put down basically. Look at the length of that tip. It's long enough to where it does have a little flexibility, but not too much. You've got plenty of control here. But if you were doing a winged liner, I would 100% use this kind of thing because it's not going to go anywhere. Like, I've never seen this liner smear off. It almost behaves more like a tubing mascara in the way it removes, but a really long wearing one that's wanting to cling on. They've got it nailed. They've figured it out, okay? And they do have a brown as well if you're wanting that. I had a brown before and I got rid of it prematurely because I had that eye infection back in the spring. That's right. And when I repurchased, I could only get black, but I'm like, hey, that's fine. I just need to know that I have this formula at my disposal. I know that's going to be on there no matter what happens. And then I'm going back to the jumbo shadow stick conversation because I like something soft and smudgy down on the lower lash line, but I'm here to say shadow is not in it for the long haul in this area, okay? It's a small area. If what you're putting there is not long wearing, it can easily drift. So I love, again, the jumbo shadow sticks that really don't move. So I'm going to give you a few suggestions. There are quite a few different brands you could turn to that can pull this product off. Bobbi Brown wears a long time there. The caviar sticks from Laura Mercier do a good job. Maybe not even though as impressive as some of the drugstore ones I'm about to mention. The Laura Geller one's huge fan of these, and she usually has a good amount of like deep jewel tones. I mentioned Brown Abyss, talking about going across the upper lash line. Reason I mentioned this shade in particular, it's a deep kind of neutral brown. Yes, there is a gentle sheen in this, but this works so well alongside so many things. I could wear it on the lower lash line too, but I would probably take care to soften that a little bit more because it is so deep. Some of these other shades, I don't even need to touch them because they're just immediately looking soft and smudgy. Sort of the step down from Brown Abyss would be Magnetic Bronze, and I'll swatch it here beside. You can see it's softer, it's just a little more gentle, and that's perfect on the lower lash line, especially for a neutral look. And feel free to find a shade and a formula you like that lets you branch out a little bit more and incorporate some color. That's great, but we're just kind of talking everyday options. Another great line of these is Hard Candy. Cold Brew looks a little more warm, more copper in this one, but it's a great option. I use it very frequently with warm eye looks on the lower lash line. And then a cooler option is Pony. Pony looks more taupe. Think of the shade Amethyst in the Laura Mercier Caviar Stick line. Really fun option there, and it looks really good with just different cool eyeshadow looks. And then another thing, this is a pure matte shade, but it's the Epic Smoke Liner from NYX, and this does not look jumbo, but the cut of the stick is such that you do get a thicker line. It's a teardrop shade, really neutral medium brown, a very good lower lash line color, and with certain natural eye looks, it can contrast with my upper shadow pretty well too. Today I'm just going to go with Magnetic Bronze. Okay, so it's a shadow stick that's going to set and not move. You may want to make a whole look out of these if that's your vibe. They feel cooling going on, but look, I'm not going to touch that. I don't feel I need to smudge that out anymore. It's already giving me a soft and also somewhat thick line. Oops, I don't know what that fleck of something is. And that's going to wear. It's not going to move, drift, anything on you. So we love L'Oreal Lace Shadow Sticks. Let's say you were doing makeup for a dramatic type of event and you've wanted or needed to incorporate some shadow on that lower lash line, and you know I've said like try to steer clear of that because it can fall down. For whatever reason, this trick does work. If I had just put shadow there, take a powder. This is just a Kosas Cloud Set. It could even be a little bit of a loose powder, but I take it with a brush immediately under the product and just dab it lightly, taking a small amount. This is not really necessary if you've just done a cream shadow stick, but I want to demo that if you are using a powder down there for some reason. I think it creates like a little oil control fence on that lower lash line. I swear it does something. And your eye makeup will stay looking fresh. Moving to mascara, I'm a firm believer in the tubing technology for Longwear all day. Drugstore does make a handful of good tubing mascaras. One that I love is e.l.f. Lash Extender. This could be used upper or lower. I think its strength and the job I've given it is just the lower lashes. It never overloads. It doesn't look like too much, but it gives me that definition and that look that I want there. I feel like this Too Faced ribbon wrapped lash, this seems to build really nice length on my upper lashes. So if I'm thinking like it's a no false lash day, but I still want to have some drama, I trust that this will get me there, and then it won't smear off. That's the benefit of a tubing mascara if you've never heard of that term. What it does is when you start to remove your makeup, it just kind of lifts off of your lashes with moisture into little rubbery bits. So like, let's say you've gotten a real downpour and you weren't intending for your makeup to come off. This would not start smearing. If you don't touch it, it's going to pretty much stay there. But if you started working into it with a washcloth, you'd notice just these little like bits of mascara just kind of lifting away from the lashes. It's a much gentler removal process compared to using a waterproof and then having to get into all these special eye makeup removers to get it off. When I take my eye makeup off at the end of the day, the last thing standing is going to be that Milani eyeliner. But that will still come off with my makeup eraser. So tubing mascaras work super duper well, and I definitely trust these two. The thing I like about this Too Faced one is it does dry pretty quickly, and that's good for my lashes that don't love to hold a curl. But notice me going back immediately for the second coat. The fact that it does dry fast means you can't build really well on a dry mascara. So you want to get to that next coat before the dry down sets in. And then I can use my little more natural one on the lower lashes, although it could absolutely work on the upper lashes too. It's just a little thing I've got going, like no matter what mascara I choose for the uppers, because I don't always use a tubing mascara up top. I've got a number of good mascaras that I feel I can trust to not flake, wear well all day, but absolutely I'm not going to skip a tubing mascara on the lower lashes. Guys, I've been trying to get a little better about my wake up time, and I feel like I've hacked the system on this. So I was normally waking up at 4:30 every day. And then over the summer months, like I actually got closer to 5 all the time. And I thought, you know, with the school year, I really need the time to not only do this, but go downstairs and occasionally make lunches, always make breakfast. You know, I've got things to do, getting the kids ready and all. And I thought I need to get back to that earlier time. So you know what I did? I set my alarm for 4:10. I get to press snooze twice, and then I feel like I actually am ready to get up. Even though straight up shooting for 4:30 alone might have felt too early for me. So yeah, that's me tricking myself in the mornings. So again, I'm just coating up immediately, like going back into the tube for more, adding more. I love this brush. That's part of the appeal of this for me. It's got this brush with the spikies coming right off the end, and it does work so effectively for reaching little lashes at the end and the inner corner. And sometimes I go back over here and I'm like, okay, I know you're mostly dry, but can you take a little more? And she's like, yeah, I'll take a little more. Okay, nice lengthened out lashes. I did hit my lid a time or two, so we'll flake that away. And then like I said, for the lowers, I'm just in a total routine of using this e.l.f. Lash Extender there. It's just the perfect amount of bulk. And I have pretty long, oddly enough, pretty long lower lashes. So it's really gotta be a mascara that's not gonna transfer off in any way, because my lashes are long and they do feel almost like they touch the skin sometimes, so they don't need a lot. I'm actually volunteering at school today doing that packet making project that they need the parents' help with. We were like a little factory last week, but that's my long wearing eye look, friends. All we have to finish now is that lip. I'm gonna pull in my little Profusion duo that I enjoy so much. So these came together. The Maple Sugar shade. It's a liner and like a nicely pigmented but very comfortable glossy balm type of thing. And then this is the top part. It's called Cashmere Lips Maple Sugar. And a caramely brown. Yay. I'm really liking the tones of this look. Like I'm wearing a little brown dress and I've got like the browns on the eyes. I love that Daring Rosewood blush and then this lip. Take the hair down, although I'm probably gonna need to ponytail it back just because I know I'll be looking down a lot and the hair will just get in my way. But that's my look, friends. And remember, as this mascara continues to get fully dry, you can blink down on your finger. And doesn't that make a world of difference with actually seeing the length that it has? It's so good. So thank you, friends, so much for your time today. I hope this was helpful and I'll see you again soon. I love you. Bye.